Lyra Chen stood at the viewport of the interstellar shuttle, her dark eyes wide with wonder as she took in the swirling, ethereal beauty of Nexus Prime. The alien world loomed before her, a tapestry of vibrant purples and blues, its atmosphere shimmering with bioluminescent particles that danced like fireflies in Earth's night sky. At just 28 years old, Lyra was the youngest diplomat ever sent to represent humanity in interstellar negotiations. Her meteoric rise through the ranks of the United Earth Government's diplomatic corps was a testament to her sharp intellect and uncanny ability to bridge cultural divides. Now, as the shuttle began its descent towards the planet's surface, she felt the weight of her responsibility settle heavily on her shoulders. The trade agreement she was here to negotiate with the Nexians was crucial. Earth needed access to the rare minerals found only on Nexus Prime to fuel its expanding space program. In return, the Nexians sought human medical technology, particularly advancements in gene therapy that could help combat a degenerative disease plaguing their species. As the shuttle touched down on the crystalline landing pad, Lyra took a deep breath, straightened her crisp navy suit, and stepped out into the alien world. The air was thick and sweet, like breathing in a field of lavender. A delegation of Nexians awaited her, their tall, willowy forms swaying gently in the light breeze. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, Diplomat Chen," the lead Nexian said, its melodious voice translating seamlessly through her earpiece. "I am Zorax, chief counselor of the Nexian Consortium." Lyra bowed deeply, a sign of respect in Nexian culture. "Thank you for your gracious welcome, Chief Counselor Zorax. I look forward to our discussions and the opportunity to strengthen the bonds between our peoples." The next few days were a whirlwind of meetings, cultural exchanges, and delicate negotiations. Lyra found herself constantly amazed by the Nexians' advanced technology and their deep connection to the natural world around them. Despite their alien appearance, she felt a kinship with them, a shared desire for peace and progress. It was during a brief respite from the talks that Lyra's life, and the course of human history, changed forever. Zorax had offered to show her the ancient ruins that lay just beyond the city's borders, a gesture of trust and openness that Lyra eagerly accepted. The ruins were a maze of crumbling stone structures, their surfaces etched with intricate symbols that seemed to shimmer and shift in the planet's ethereal light. As they walked deeper into the complex, Lyra felt a strange tingling at the base of her skull, a whisper of something just beyond her perception. "These ruins predate our civilization by millennia," Zorax explained, its voice hushed with reverence. "We believe they were left by the predecessors, a species that achieved technological and spiritual enlightenment beyond our comprehension." Lyra nodded, only half listening as the whisper in her mind grew louder. She found herself drawn to a particular structure, a domed building that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Without realizing it, she had stepped away from Zorax and was walking towards the entrance. "Diplomat Chen," Zorax called, a note of concern in its voice. "We haven't fully explored that area. It may not be safe." But Lyra couldn't stop. The whisper had become a song, pulling her forward with an irresistible force. She stepped into the domed building, her heart pounding in her chest. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and atop it rested a small, unassuming object. It was a cube, no larger than her palm, made of a material that seemed to absorb and emit light simultaneously. Without thinking, Lyra reached out and picked it up. The world exploded. Images flooded her mind, stars being born and dying, civilizations rising and falling, the vast tapestry of the universe unfolding before her. She saw strands of energy connecting all living things, a web of consciousness that spanned galaxies. And within herself, she felt something awakening, a power that had lain dormant in her genes, waiting for this moment. Lyra gasped and stumbled backward, the cube falling from her grasp. Zorax caught her before she hit the ground, its alien features contorted with worry. "What happened? Are you all right?" it asked, supporting her weight easily. Lyra blinked, trying to process the flood of information and sensations coursing through her. I'm not sure, she stammered. I saw everything. As they made their way back to the city, Lyra's mind raced. The cube had activated something within her, unlocking abilities she never knew she possessed. She could sense the thoughts and emotions of those around her, could see the energy flowing through living things. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. Over the next few days, as the trade negotiations continued, Lyra struggled to keep her newfound abilities in check. She found herself knowing things she shouldn't, anticipating the Nexians' arguments before they made them. It gave her an edge in the talks, but it also filled her with a deep unease. What had the cube done to her? And what would it mean for humanity if others developed these same abilities? As she prepared to return to Earth, the trade agreement successfully concluded. Lyra knew that she was bringing back far more than just a diplomatic victory. She was carrying the key to humanity's evolution, and possibly its greatest challenge. The whisper of shadows had become a roar, and the universe would never be the same. The revelation. 6 months had passed since Lyra Chen's fateful encounter with the alien artifact on Nexus Prime. In that time, the world had changed dramatically. News of her newfound abilities had spread like wildfire, despite attempts to keep it classified. Humans across the globe began reporting similar experiences, flashes of telepathy, telekinesis, and even precognition. Lyra sat in her office at the United Earth Government headquarters in Geneva, her head in her hands. The constant barrage of thoughts and emotions from those around her was giving her a migraine. She had learned to control her abilities to some extent, but the sheer volume of psychic noise in a bustling government building was overwhelming. A knock at the door provided a welcome distraction. "Come in," she called, looking up to see her mentor and friend, Ambassador Marcus Reeves. "How are you holding up, kid?" Marcus asked, his weathered face creased with concern. Lyra managed a weak smile. "I've been better. Any news from the Galactic Council?" Marcus sighed heavily, taking the seat across from her. "That's why I'm here. The situation is tense. Many of the other species are frightened by humanity's rapid development of psychic abilities. There's talk of sanctions, even quarantine." Lyra's heart sank. She had feared this might happen. The emergence of psychic powers among humans had upset the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. Some saw it as a threat, others as an opportunity to be exploited. "We need to reassure them," Lyra said, standing up and pacing the room. "Show them that we're still the same people, that we want peace and cooperation." Marcus nodded, but his expression remained grim. "We're trying, but there's more. Our intelligence agencies have intercepted communications between several alien factions. They're discussing preemptive action against Earth." Lyra froze, her blood running cold. "You mean war?" "They're calling it containment," Marcus replied, his voice heavy with irony. "But yes, essentially." Over the next few weeks, Lyra threw herself into diplomatic efforts, using her abilities to navigate the complex web of interstellar politics. She spoke at the Galactic Council, demonstrating that humans could use their newfound powers responsibly and for the benefit of all species. But even as she worked tirelessly for peace, she couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was brewing beneath the surface. It was during a late-night session poring over diplomatic reports that Lyra's precognitive abilities kicked in. A vision flashed before her eyes. Massive warships descending on Earth, cities in flames, millions dead. She gasped, nearly falling out of her chair. "This can't be right," she muttered, her hand shaking as she reached for her comm device. She needed to warn someone, needed to prevent this future from coming to pass. But as she delved deeper into classified reports and used her telepathic abilities to gently probe the minds of key alien diplomats, a chilling truth began to emerge. The threat wasn't coming from the official channels of the Galactic Council. It was something far more insidious. A secret coalition had formed, comprised of hardliners from various alien species. They called themselves the Guardians of Galactic Order, but their true agenda was far from noble. They saw humanity's psychic awakening as an existential threat, one that needed to be eliminated before it could spread. Lyra worked tirelessly, gathering evidence and building a case to present to the Galactic Council. But the Guardians were always one step ahead, using their influence to block her efforts and sow discord among Earth's allies. It all came to a head during an emergency session of the Council. Lyra stood before the assembled representatives of 100 alien species, her heart pounding but her resolve firm. Distinguished members of the Council, she began, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. I come before you today with grave news. There is a conspiracy within our ranks, a group that seeks to destroy humanity out of fear and ignorance. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as Lyra laid out her evidence. She revealed intercepted communications, financial records showing the flow of funds to build a secret armada, and testimony from whistleblowers within the Guardians' ranks. As she spoke, she could feel the minds of those present, could sense the shock, disbelief, and in some cases, grudging admiration for her detective work. But she also felt a current of fear running beneath it all. Fear of what humanity might become, fear of change, fear of the unknown. I understand your concerns, Lyra said, her voice softening. The emergence of psychic abilities among humans is unprecedented. It's natural to fear what you don't understand. But I implore you to look beyond that fear, to see the potential for growth, for understanding between our species that these abilities offer. She paused, taking a deep breath before continuing. We stand at a crossroads. We can choose the path of fear, of preemptive violence that will only lead to more suffering, or we can choose the path of cooperation, of mutual understanding and shared progress. As Lyra finished her speech, the chamber erupted into chaos. Accusations flew, alliances shifted, and the very foundations of galactic politics seemed to tremble. In the midst of it all, Lyra sensed a familiar presence. She turned to see Zorax, the Nexian chief counselor, approaching her. You have done well, Diplomat Chen, Zorax said, its melodious voice barely audible above the din. But I fear you have only scratched the surface of the truth. Lyra's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Zorax glanced around, then leaned in close. The artifact you encountered on Nexus Prime, it was not the only one. There are others scattered across the galaxy, and the Guardians are not the only ones seeking them. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. The revelation of the Guardians' conspiracy was only the beginning. There were deeper mysteries at play, ancient powers awakening across the stars. As the Galactic Council descended into arguments and emergency sessions, Lyra knew that her work was far from over. The true test of humanity, and of her own abilities, was yet to come. The whisper of shadows had become a chorus, and the galaxy trembled on the brink of chaos. The confrontation. The stars blazed coldly in the viewport as Lyra Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, Earth's flagship. Despite its name, the massive vessel was now leading a fleet of warships towards the edge of human space. The Guardians of Galactic Order had made their move, and humanity had no choice but to respond. Lyra closed her eyes, extending her psychic senses. She could feel the fear and determination of the crew around her, the grim resolve of the other ship captains linked through the fleet's psychic network. And beyond that, at the very edge of her perception, she sensed the cold, alien minds of their enemies. Status report, Admiral Helena Vega demanded, her voice cutting through Lyra's concentration. Guardian fleet detected at the edge of the Arcturus system. The tactical officer responded. Composition matches our intelligence estimates. They outnumber us 3-1. Lyra's heart sank. Despite Earth's best efforts to build up its defenses, the Guardians had managed to assemble a massive armada in secret. This would not be an easy fight. Your recommendations, Diplomat Chen? Admiral Vega asked, turning to Lyra. Lyra took a deep breath, centering herself. In the months since the revelation of the Guardians' conspiracy, she had been working tirelessly to hone her abilities, and uncover more about the ancient artifacts that had awakened humanity's psychic potential. Now, those skills would be put to the ultimate test. "We need to try one last time for a peaceful resolution," Lyra said. "Let me reach out to their leaders telepathically. If we can show them the truth, make them understand that we're not a threat. And if that fails," the Admiral pressed. Lyra's expression hardened. "Then we fight. But not just with ships and weapons. We use every advantage our new abilities give us." Admiral Vega nodded grimly. "Make your attempt, diplomat, but be ready for battle." Lyra closed her eyes once more, reaching out across the vast distances of space. She felt her consciousness expand, touching the minds of the Guardian leaders. Many were close to her, shielded by technology or their own psychic defenses. But a few were open, curious, or simply unprepared for such contact. "We don't have to do this," Lyra projected, her thoughts carrying images of peace, of cooperation, of the wonders that could be achieved if their species worked together. "We can find a way forward together." For a moment, she felt a flicker of hope. Some of the alien minds seemed to waver, to consider her words. But then a wave of fear and hatred crashed over her, nearly overwhelming her psychic senses. Deceiver. Abomination. The thoughts lashed at her like whips. "Your kind must be destroyed before you corrupt the galaxy." Lyra gasped, staggering back as she returned to her body. Admiral Vega steadied her with a concerned look. "It didn't work," Lyra said, her voice hoarse. "They're too afraid, too set in their beliefs. We have no choice but to defend ourselves." As if in response to her words, the first salvo of Guardian weapons fire lit up space. The battle had begun. What followed was chaos unlike anything Lyra had ever experienced. Traditional weapons fire mixed with exotic energy weapons and psychic attacks. Lyra coordinated with other psychically gifted humans throughout the fleet, creating shields of pure mental energy to deflect enemy fire and launching counterattacks that confused and disoriented the Guardian ships. But despite their best efforts, the human fleet was slowly being pushed back. The Guardians' superior numbers and firepower were taking their toll. Ship after ship winked out of existence, each loss a psychic scream that tore at Lyra's mind. "We can't hold them much longer," Admiral Vega said, her face grim as she surveyed the tactical display. "We need to fall back, regroup with the rest of the fleet deeper in our territory." Lyra shook her head. "If we retreat now, we'll lose the entire system. There has to be another way." She closed her eyes, reaching out with her mind, searching for something, anything that could turn the tide. And then she felt it. A presence, ancient and powerful, pulsing with energy at the edge of her consciousness. It was coming from Arcturus IV, a gas giant that had long been thought lifeless. "There's something down there," Lyra said, her eyes snapping open. "On Arcturus IV. I think it might be another artifact, like the one I found on Nexus Prime." Admiral Vega looked skeptical. "Even if that's true, how does it help us now?" "I don't know," Lyra admitted, "but I can feel its power. If we can reach it, activate it somehow, it might be our only chance." For a long moment, the Admiral was silent, weighing their rapidly dwindling options. Finally, she nodded. "Do it. Take a shuttle and whatever personnel you need. We'll buy you as much time as we can." The next hour was a blur of frantic action. Lyra, along with a small team of soldiers and scientists, raced towards the swirling storms of Arcturus IV in a heavily shielded shuttle. All around them, the battle raged, but Lyra's focus was entirely on the pulsing energy she sensed below. As they descended into the gas giant's atmosphere, buffeted by hurricane-force winds and dodging bolts of lightning the size of continents, Lyra felt the artifact's presence grow stronger. It was calling to her, guiding her through the chaos. Finally, they broke through to a calm eye in the storm. There, suspended in the air, was a structure that defied explanation. It was a perfect sphere, hundreds of meters in diameter. Its surface covered in the same shifting symbols Lyra had seen in the ruins on Nexus Prime. "By all the stars," one of the scientists whispered in awe. Lyra didn't hesitate. As soon as the shuttle doors opened, she leaped out, using her telekinetic abilities to propel herself towards the sphere. She could hear the shouts of alarm from her team, but she tuned them out. There was no time for caution. As her hand touched the surface of the artifact, the world exploded into light and sound. Lyra felt herself falling, tumbling through space and time, through memories and knowledge older than the stars themselves. And then, suddenly, she understood. With a thought, Lyra reached out, not just to the human fleet, but to every mind in the system, human and alien alike, and she showed them what she had seen. The truth of their shared origins, the purpose of the artifacts, the destiny that awaited them all if they could move past their fears and work together. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the battle froze. Ships hung motionless in space as their crews grappled with the revelation. And then, slowly at first, but with growing momentum, weapons powered down. Communication channels burst to life with messages of confusion, wonder, and tentative hope. As Lyra floated before the ancient sphere, her mind expanded beyond anything she had thought possible. She knew that this was only the beginning. The real work of building understanding between species, of unlocking the true potential of the artifacts, was just beginning. But for now, in this moment, there was peace. The whisper of shadows had become a song of unity, echoing across the stars. The darkness within. The grand chamber of the newly formed Intergalactic Council hummed with activity. Representatives from a dozen species sat around a circular table, their minds linked in a complex psychic network that allowed for instantaneous communication and understanding. At the center of it all stood Lyra Chen, her presence a beacon of calm amidst the swirling emotions and thoughts. 6 months had passed since the revelation at Arcturus IV. The knowledge unlocked by the ancient artifact had changed everything. The Guardians of Galactic Order had disbanded, their fears allayed by the understanding that humanity's psychic awakening was part of a greater plan, one that involved all sentient species in the galaxy. But peace, Lyra had learned, was often more challenging than war. The Zarthal Collective demands immediate access to the Arcturus artifact. The insectoid representative chittered, its multifaceted eyes flashing with irritation. We have as much right to study it as the humans, and risk unleashing untold psychic powers on your unprepared population. The Nexian delegate, Zorax, countered. We've all seen the reports of what happened on Earth when humans gained these abilities too quickly. Chaos, destruction, lives lost. Lyra raised a hand, silencing the brewing argument with a gentle psychic nudge. We've discussed this, she said, her voice calm but firm. The artifacts are not toys to be played with or weapons to be exploited. They're keys to our shared evolution, and we must approach them with caution and reverence. She could feel the frustration and impatience roiling beneath the surface of many minds in the room. The promise of godlike powers was tantalizing, and not everyone was willing to wait. As the meeting adjourned, Lyra felt a familiar presence approach. Marcus Reeves, now Earth's official ambassador to the Council, fell into step beside her. "Nicely handled in there," he said, his weathered face creased with a smile. "But we both know it's only going to get harder from here." Lyra nodded, her expression grim. "Have you seen the latest reports from Earth?" Marcus's smile faded. "I have." "It's not good, is it?" "No," Lyra agreed. "It's not." Back in her private quarters, Lyra pored over the classified reports from Earth's government. The emergence of psychic abilities among the human population had not been without its costs. While many used their newfound powers responsibly, others had succumbed to darker impulses. Criminal organizations led by powerful psychics were springing up across the globe. Governments struggled to maintain order in the face of citizens who could read minds, manipulate matter, and even alter the perceptions of those around them. And perhaps most troublingly, a growing movement of human supremacists was gaining traction, arguing that humanity's psychic potential made them destined to rule the galaxy. Lyra's comm unit chimed, startling her from her grim reverie. It was an urgent message from Admiral Vega. "We've got a situation," the Admiral's holographic image said without preamble. "A group of rogue psychics has taken control of a colony on Epsilon Eridanii. They're demanding recognition as an independent state and threatening to destroy the colony if we intervene." Lyra's heart sank. This was exactly the kind of scenario she had feared. "What are their capabilities?" "Off the charts," Vega replied grimly. "Our scouts report they've managed to create some kind of psychic amplification device. They're projecting a shield around the entire colony that our ships can't penetrate." "I'm on my way," Lyra said, already moving to pack a bag. "Have a ship ready for me in an hour." The journey to Epsilon Eridanii was tense. Lyra spent the time meditating, preparing herself mentally for the confrontation to come. She knew that her own abilities had grown tremendously since her encounter with the Arcturus artifact, but she had always been careful to use them ethically. Now she wondered if that restraint would be a liability. As their ship approached the colony, Lyra could feel the psychic maelstrom emanating from the planet's surface. The rogue psychics were projecting a wall of mental energy that made her head spin even from orbit. "We're being hailed," the ship's captain announced. A face appeared on the view screen, a man with wild eyes and an unsettling smile. "Ah, the famous Lyra Chen," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Come to lecture us on the responsible use of our gifts." "I've come to negotiate," Lyra replied calmly. "What you're doing is putting innocent lives at risk. Let's talk about this." The man laughed. "Negotiate? We're beyond that. We've tasted true power, and we won't be bound by the timid constraints of your precious council. This is the future of humanity. Unfettered, unbound, unlimited." Lyra could feel the raw power behind his words, the intoxicating allure of absolute freedom. For a moment, she felt a flicker of temptation. What if he was right? What if they were holding themselves back? But then she remembered the faces of the alien delegates on the council, the trust they had placed in her and in humanity. She thought of the ancient knowledge imparted by the artifact, the delicate balance of the universe. "You're wrong," she said softly. "True power comes from understanding, from connection, not from domination." With that, Lyra closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. She pushed past the chaotic shield surrounding the colony, touching the minds of the colonists trapped within. She felt their fear, their confusion, their desperate hope for rescue. And then she went deeper, brushing against the minds of the rogue psychics themselves. She saw their pain, their anger, the wounds that had driven them to this desperate act. And she offered them something they didn't expect: empathy. "I understand," she projected, her thoughts carrying warmth and compassion. "You're afraid. You've been given these incredible abilities, and you don't know how to control them. You're lashing out because you feel alone." She felt their mental defenses waver, confusion and surprise rippling through their psychic link. "But you're not alone," Lyra continued. "We're all in this together. Humans, aliens, every sentient being in the galaxy. We're all part of something greater. Let me show you." With that, Lyra opened her mind fully, sharing the vision she had experienced at Arcturus IV. The rogue psychics gasped as understanding flooded their consciousness. They saw the interconnectedness of all things, the grand design that their abilities were just a small part of. Slowly, the psychic shield around the colony began to dissipate. Lyra felt the fight go out of the rogue leaders, replaced by a mixture of awe and shame. As the crisis came to an end, Lyra knew that this was only one battle in a longer war. The darkness within humanity, the temptation to abuse power, to dominate rather than cooperate, would always be there. But so too would the capacity for understanding, for growth, for redemption. The whisper of shadows had become a dialogue, a constant reminder of the choice each person faced, to embrace the light or succumb to the darkness. And Lyra vowed to be there, guiding humanity towards a brighter future among the stars. The balance. 5 years had passed since the Epsilon Eridani incident. Lyra Chen stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, a massive structure orbiting Earth that served as the headquarters for the Intergalactic Psychic Regulatory Commission. The blue-green orb of humanity's homeworld spun slowly below, a reminder of how far they had come and how much farther they had yet to go. Lyra's reflection in the transparent aluminum window showed the toll the years had taken. Silver streaks now ran through her dark hair, and fine lines had appeared at the corners of her eyes. But those eyes still burned with the same determination and hope that had carried her through countless challenges. "Contemplating your legacy, Ambassador Chen," a voice asked from behind her. Lyra turned to see Zorax, the Nexian delegate who had become one of her closest allies over the years. She smiled warmly at her friend. "Just thinking about how much has changed," Lyra replied. "And how much remains the same?" Zorax nodded, its willowy form swaying slightly. "The universe has a way of maintaining its balance, doesn't it? For every step forward, there always seems to be a force pushing back." Lyra sighed, knowing all too well what Zorax meant. The past 5 years had been a constant struggle to maintain peace and stability in a galaxy transformed by the spread of psychic abilities. The Intergalactic Psychic Regulatory Commission had been established to oversee the responsible development and use of these powers across all species. Under Lyra's leadership, they had made significant progress. Training programs had been implemented to help individuals control their abilities. Ethical guidelines had been established and enforced. And perhaps most importantly, a system of checks and balances had been put in place to prevent any one group or individual from becoming too powerful. But challenges remained. Rogue psychics still emerged, tempted by the allure of unrestricted power. Some species, fearful of change, resisted the integration of psychic abilities into their societies. And there were still those who sought to weaponize these gifts, seeing them as the key to galactic domination. "The Council is assembling," Zorax said gently, interrupting Lyra's thoughts. "It's time." Lyra nodded, taking a deep breath to center herself before following Zorax to the council chambers. The circular room was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Some were physically present, while others attended via advanced holographic technology. As Lyra took her seat, she could feel the mix of emotions in the room: anticipation, concern, hope, and fear all swirling together in a psychic tapestry. This emergency session of the Intergalactic Council is now in session. The chair being announced, its multiple appendages gesturing for silence. "Ambassador Chen, please present your proposal." Lyra stood, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "Distinguished representatives," she began, "we stand at a crossroads. The discovery and activation of the ancient artifacts have set us on a path of unprecedented growth and change. But with that change comes great responsibility." She paused, making eye contact with each delegate in turn. "The Commission has done its best to guide this transformation, to ensure that psychic abilities are used for the benefit of all. But we must acknowledge that our current approach is not sustainable in the long term." Murmurs rippled through the chamber, but Lyra pressed on. "We cannot continue to react to crises as they arise. We must take a proactive approach, one that addresses the root causes of conflict and fear." With a gesture, Lyra activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed a network of glowing points spread across a map of the galaxy. "I propose the establishment of the Harmonic Network," Lyra explained. "A system of psychic amplifiers, based on the technology we've reverse-engineered from the ancient artifacts. These amplifiers will be placed at key points throughout the galaxy, creating a field of balanced psychic energy." The display shifted, showing waves of energy flowing between the points, intertwining and stabilizing each other. "This network will serve multiple purposes," Lyra continued. "First, it will act as a damper on extreme psychic outputs, making it more difficult for individuals to abuse their powers on a large scale. Second, it will facilitate communication and understanding between species, strengthening the bonds that hold our galactic community together." She took a deep breath before delivering the most controversial part of her proposal. Finally, the network will gradually awaken latent psychic potential in all sentient beings at a pace that allows for proper training and integration. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of voices and thoughts. Lyra stood firm, weathering the storm of reactions. She had expected this. The idea of deliberately spreading psychic abilities to all species was radical, to say the least. Order. The chair being called, its psychic voice cutting through the chaos. We will hear arguments for and against this proposal in turn. What followed was a debate that lasted for hours. Supporters argued that the harmonic network would create a more equal and connected galaxy. Opponents feared it would erase cultural differences and potentially be used as a tool for mass control. Through it all, Lyra listened, addressed concerns, and steadfastly defended her vision. As the debate wore on, she could sense a shift in the room. Minds were opening, considering the possibilities. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the chair being called for a vote. Lyra held her breath as the results were tallied. By a margin of 3 votes, the chair being announced, the proposal for the harmonic network is approved. A mix of cheers and groans filled the chamber, but Lyra felt only a profound sense of relief and determination. This was only the beginning. Implementing the network would take years, perhaps decades, but it was a start, a step towards the future she had glimpsed in the visions imparted by the ancient artifacts. As the council session adjourned, Lyra found herself once again on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. Zorax joined her, its thoughts a comforting presence at the edge of her mind. "You've set us on a new path," Zorax said softly, "one that will change the face of the galaxy forever." Lyra nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Change is inevitable," she replied. "Our job is to guide it, to find the balance between progress and stability, between individual potential and collective harmony." She placed her hand on the cool surface of the window, feeling the faint thrum of the station's energy. "The whisper of shadows will always be with us," Lyra mused. "But now, perhaps, it can be balanced by a chorus of light." As she stood there, looking out at the vast expanse of space, Lyra Chen felt a sense of peace wash over her. The road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in years, she felt truly hopeful about the future. The galaxy was changing, awakening to its true potential. And together, united by the harmonic network and the shared experience of psychic awakening, they would face whatever challenges the universe had in store. The whisper of shadows had become a symphony of possibility, echoing across the stars and into the unknown future that awaited them all.